Hello and welcome. This is Nancy. I'm coming to you live from South Bend, Indiana with my Seeking Truth Always video live podcast. Now for over 5 years. As many of you know, you've been with me that long. And my journey's been about 8 years till the Lord called me to start sharing what I had learned a couple of years into my own journey. If you're new, welcome. I usually share little bits and pieces about myself when we get started because new people join us all the time. New people seeking truth. And if you're one of them, I just want to say I'm glad you found us and welcome to the Seeking Truth Always family. God called me about 8 years ago with a scripture on my heart to look up. I didn't know what it was. Luke 8:17. And when I did look it up, I recognized it, but wasn't really super familiar with it. And certainly didn't understand why the Lord put it on my heart. It said everything that's been kept secret, hidden, and in the dark will be revealed and will come to light. Well, my question of the Lord was, what has been kept secret? What has been hidden? What have we been lied to about? Because I really didn't know. I mean, sure, you know that there's probably certain things that you're not privy to and you don't know, or you misunderstood, or somebody actually did lie about. But the last 8 years have been the Lord answering that question. What have we been lied to about? And now my question isn't, Lord, what have we been lied to about? It's, Lord, what haven't we been lied to about? About 2 years into my journey, He called me to start doing this. And this was 100,000% out of my comfort zone. 100% didn't seem enough when I was just saying that. 100,000%. Because I'd never done videos. I've been self-employed probably 95% of my entire career, and developed multiple businesses, and an accomplished public speaker, not shy, not introverted, totally not afraid to talk to people. I've talked to crowds of, well, I think my biggest crowd was over 7,000 people. And then I've talked to people one-on-one across a dining room table. And so it wasn't shyness, it's just I'd never done this video stuff. I didn't even do live calls with family, you know, like where you're on the camera. You know, people out of town and so forth. It just wasn't comfortable. It's not how I was raised. It's not my history. You know, my history is the telephone. And back then we used to do it like that for the telephone. But when I was in Hawaii, I learned it means hang loose. Hang loose. But regardless, it'll always be a telephone. If I'm talking about talking on a telephone, 90% of the time, I'll probably do this. But anyway, I knew that's what the Lord wanted me to do. I kind of put it off for multiple months. I guess hoping I was discerning wrong. Or that God might change His mind. And God's not like a mind-changing kind of God, you know. So anyway, April of 2021, I did my first podcast. Nervous as the dickens. I was sitting on my patio, and I have a glider rocker back there, you know. I love to rock. I'm not in a glider right now. But my chair does rock, though, because I love to rock. But I really have to focus and not rock when I'm talking to you guys. But the very first time that I did a podcast, I was in my glider rocker on my patio and nervous. Didn't really know what I was going to say. And didn't realize I was rocking. That kind of a nervous reaction, you know. and I was holding my phone. So as I rocked, the phone went with me, So I didn't really realize I was rocking. And after my very first podcast, I mean, I didn't even call it a podcast, I guess, back then, my very first video. Some of the people that watched, they reached out to me and they said, you did a really good job, but you made me dizzy. I wasn't even aware I was rocking. Sometimes when I look back at one of my videos with you guys, as I'm editing and uploading and so forth, I notice I'm moving. And see, it's just, and you probably noticed it too if you watch me. And I don't mean to, it's just a natural thing for me to move. And even when it wasn't with my son, but with my daughter when she was born, I really believe she came out of the womb rocking. Because from the time she was an infant, like a newborn, you lay your babies on their tummy. And as soon as she was able to get her little butt up in the air, she started just going back and forth, like, and then when she got older and she could sit up in her crib or in her playpen or whatever, she always sucked her thumb, and she'd be sucking her thumb, and she'd just rock. No rocking chair, she'd just rock. And so she was, before the age of going out of her crib and into, like the next kind of little bed you get your toddler. But it wasn't really time. But she was rocking so hard and so long, it was over 3 years. Rocking. She put herself to sleep that way. She would just rock. Anyway, she got to where she got to rocking hard. Just, you would hear the crib going up against the wall, Anyway, she broke her crib. Well, she got that rocking from me. I have absolutely no doubt about it. She wasn't hurt or anything. It just, the minute, like, you heard this bang, you run into her room. And it didn't, like, the crib didn't, like, fall down and she wasn't hurt or anything, but she broke it away from its, it wasn't safe for her to rock in anymore. So she got into the junior bed pretty quick, or whatever we called it. I don't remember what we called it. But I have a tendency to rock. And so if I do rock, I don't mean to be. I really have to focus not to. Because it's just natural for me to do this. And even my daughter and I mean, she's, ever since she's driven or been in a car, like she would, even when she drives, even still to this day, she'll be driving and just be doing this. And I'll do the same thing. It's kind of funny. Yeah, so how I went there, who knows? But that was my first podcast where people came back or responded, gave me feedback that I made them dizzy. So I do try hard not to rock for you guys. But I just do it naturally. But that was my first time, and now it's over 5 years later. It was April 2021. And I never thought it would be this long. I mean, we'd be doing this together. I mean, I was in it for the count, whatever that saying is, and however long, until God calls me out of this season. I'm in it. I'm not going anywhere unless he calls me to. And then it's like, okay, the season's over, and whatever it is he's calling me next. But this has taken far longer than I ever thought it would. I thought this would be a 6-month season or a 3-month season or maybe a year. And then when we hit a year, it was like, well, it will never go 2 whole years. Well, we are over 5. Anyway, that's a little bit of my story. If you'd like to know more of my story, you got more of my story because I don't talk about the rocking too often. But at any rate, there's a link in the description of this video to a video that just says Introduction to Nancy. It's at both my Rumble channel and my YouTube channel. However, the one in the description of this video is the Rumble link. And if you like YouTube better, you can just go to YouTube, do a search for Seeking Truth Always, and you'll find me. I only started that channel maybe 4 months ago, something like that. I didn't want to be over there because they censor worse than this platform. But the Lord called me to start a channel over there because there's more asleep people over there than even here. And there's a lot here in Facebook. Yeah, I get hassled by them all the time. Have for over 5 years. And, but the Lord the Lord knows there's people over there that if I can resonate with even just one, you know, that's God's will. So, if you want to look for me over in YouTube and subscribe, it's free, but subscribe to my channel over there. They call it subscribing over there. Not following, but subscribing. That would be great, because the more people that subscribe, the further reach the video goes to, and the higher likelihood that that person or persons God wants to see it. There'll be more opportunity for that because YouTube would push it out a little further. Anyway, I think I'm up to 138 followers. It's a very slow growth over there. But that's okay. It started slow here at well, I'm on Facebook, but I upload all these videos to Rumble. And when I started my Rumble channel in March of 22, I could count on one hand how many people I knew that had heard of Rumble. And now we have over 6,200, 6,300 followers. How many do we have? We have 6,250 plus followers. They do it in increments of 10. So 6,250 of you. So if you're joining from Rumble, welcome and thank you. Thank you for your trust. Thank you for following. Has really helped to get the word out in Rumble land. And here in Facebook, I had 0 followers when I started doing this. I had friends. I had like 2,300 friends. And I'd had Facebook since probably 2000, 2001. And had a lot of business contacts. People in different groups I connected with through the years. You know, lots of that. But friends, 2,300 friends, but no followers. And now there's over 6,000 or 6,500, I think, followers. Something like that here on Facebook. It just blows me away. Including, I mean, in addition to my 22 or 2,300 friends. And so I'm out there. People are learning. People are on their awakening journey. I always demonstrate with my hands, because every journey has a beginning and an end. We haven't reached the end of this journey yet, this awakening journey. But I believe, I mean, they call it that. A lot of people call it that, the Great Awakening, and it is a Great Awakening. But I look at it as God's awakening, His Great Awakening. And that's really what Luke 8:17 was all about. Everything that's been kept secret, hidden, and in the dark will be revealed and will come to light. Well, light is truth. Truth is God. God is truth. And everything that's been kept secret and hidden is going to be exposed. That's what that scripture is saying. So that means people are waking up. If it's exposed, it means they didn't know it before. Or if it's revealed, we didn't know it before. So God's plan has been this great awakening. So yeah, mine's been 8 years. Yours might have been 8 months, 8 days, 18 years. We're all on the journey. We're in different places, but we're all at the same place in the journey insofar as where the Great Awakening is. And we are in the season of disclosures. So much going on. So much being disclosed. Every area, whether it's the vaccines, COVID, fraud, elections, health, the medical system, the pharmaceutical system, the school system, the education system, the religious system. So many exposures. God said everything that has been kept secret, hidden, and in the dark. And when he said everything, I didn't realize he meant about everything too. Literally everything and about everything. So that's what we do. He gave me in my heart the name Seeking Truth Always because, well, that's what I'm doing. We're not seeking lies. We've been given those without looking for them. We didn't have to seek the lies. We've been lied to our entire lives. Lied to our entire lives. So this is what this podcast is all about, and I cover just about any topic and every topic. From the good, the bad, and the ugly. So last podcast, I talked about Dolly. Ooh, that's a hot topic. Well, it's a hot topic because, as with everything else, we've been lied to about everything. Everything is pretty broad. And as I said on my last podcast, it is my belief, based on the information I have come across over my 8 years in the thick of all this. Because if you didn't know this, this is like not even a full-time job. It's a double full-time job. It's like working overtime. Having 3 jobs. And I don't exaggerate. And this has been my life 100% consumed with everything that goes along with this awakening and bringing the truth as I see it, as I believe it to be to you, because that's what God called me to do. And it is every day of my life, literally. And I wouldn't have it any other way, because when you're in obedience to God and you're doing His will, it's so much bigger than just us. You know, it's what He wants and what He is calling us to do in the army He has risen up for such a time as this. And each one of us do something different. He saw something in me to do this. So here I am. But yeah, about Dolly. I talked about it on the last podcast, and I shared things that I believe are the truth, sadly. Her role, remember we're watching a movie? I talk about it all the time. We're watching a movie. Her role, sometimes the Lord just takes me someplace when I'm saying something. I was saying her role, and then what He put in my spirit was the great deceiver. And I know why He put that in my spirit, because Satan is the great deceiver. And some people worship him and don't worship God. And I'm just going to say things very broad right now. Like, if you don't think that every segment of society has not been infiltrated by him, the great deceiver. When I say every segment of society, there's people, I'm going to just say in every religion, who are deceived and worship the great deceiver. And so the church has been infiltrated. But so is Hollywood. And so is the medical system. And so is the education system. Because Satan doesn't draw a little box around who he's going to deceive. And I'm going to deceive these people, but not those people. Or I'm going to deceive about this information, but not that information. So Hollywood and the entertainment system and the music system, music industry and all that, there's people that are deceived. There's people that have been tempted. I mean, think back to the garden. Adam and Eve had it perfect. They walked with God, for goodness sakes. They couldn't have had a better life. It couldn't have been better because it was perfect. And yet they were able to be deceived by the great deceiver. So you think we're not able to be deceived? Do you think that people just as an example, Dolly Parton wouldn't be able to be deceived? If Eve could be deceived, don't you think she could? And that goes with anybody. And it goes for you and it goes for me. We are all targets. We just don't all sell out by the grace of God, because we have free will. We have free will. We all can. So if they did sell out, do you think they're going to lie about who they are? They're deceivers. Do you think they're going to lie about who they are? Do you think they're going to put on a good show for the movie? Do you think they're going to say they believe in God, even if they don't? I can tell you this, I believe in God, and I wear my symbols to show, a cross. People that aren't trying to deceive people, like their job is to convince people that they are not worshiping the evil one. But they will do symbolism. They will do symbolism. They will show us who they are. They will always show us who they are in their symbolism to the public. Even if they're saying they're believers, they will still show a symbol, satanic symbolism. I've done a lot of podcasts on that for you guys through the years. God took me to that very dark place very early on. So I know a lot about the symbolism. Maybe you knew this, maybe you didn't, but I'm going to take a little detour here and just say, did you know that in satanic rituals, they stand 6 feet apart? What does that remind you of? Were we told to stand 6 feet apart or sit 6 feet apart, even in a church, when they allowed us to go back? They wanted us sitting 6 feet apart. If we were standing outside the door, we had to be 6 feet apart. Remember the X's on the floors? Remember that? And that's not all. In satanic rituals, they cover their faces. They cover their faces. It's part of satanic rituals. Do you remember a time when everyone in the world was being told to cover their faces and stand 6 feet apart? So, a lot of famous people do photo ops covering one eye, just like I just showed you. They cover one eye. That's a symbol. It's symbolism. It's telling the people who they worship, it's telling their God who they worship. I'm obedient doing these podcasts. They're obedient doing what they're doing. You're obedient doing things that God calls you to do. They're obedient to their God. And they publicly display it. It's their job. It's part of their job. Is to deceive people. And it's a hard one because I loved Dolly. Oh my gosh, I loved her. I loved her voice. I loved her acting. I loved her humor. I loved everything about her. I was thinking about this the other day after she died, of course. I've known this for a long time about her. And as I said, I believe that it's true. A lot of people call it conspiracy theories, and some people get really mad and angry because, it was the same way I was when I first learned about it. I did not believe it. It was probably 7 years ago. I didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. I blocked it out. I wouldn't look at stuff about it. I was like, that can't be true. This is garbage. But then I started learning about things, and you learn what to look for. It's like with singers, you look at their album covers. Did you ever know the Beatles had an album cover? The Beatles. I never even realized it until I got on my awakening journey and I saw all their album covers and looking back. But did you know they had an album cover where they were all holding dismembered babies? They always show us what and who they worship. So, I mean, you start looking back at the symbolism. I showed you guys on the last podcast, Dollywood. And there's a butterfly in the Dollywood, in the wood part. It's like made into a butterfly where the OO is. And butterflies are symbolic of monarch butterflies of MK Ultra, the brainwashing mind control program, real program, not a conspiracy theory, a real program. We've talked about it hundreds of times, probably, in my 5 years. Just had an interview with Kathy O'Brien, who was sold into the monarch government brainwashing program when she was 3 months old by her satanic family. From Muskegon, Michigan. I say that because I don't live far from Muskegon, Michigan. And from the time she was born, she was... Think of the most evil thing you could do to a baby, and that's what was done to her as an infant. But then at 3 months, sold into the monarch MK Ultra mind control government program that the CIA ran. And that's a huge symbol. It is a triggering symbol, as a matter of fact. So people who have been brainwashed in that, and just about every young star, I mean, there's famous people that have obviously been brainwashed into it. Like you think of Britney Spears or somebody like that as one example. Lots of people have come out and given their testimonies over the years. They've told what happened to them. So when a child or an adult sees that monarch butterfly walking into Dollywood, it triggers them. The monarch butterfly triggers every victim of this brainwashing program. And it's on her sign. And I showed that on the last podcast. If you didn't see that podcast, it was 2 days ago, on the 25th. It's probably 30, 45 minutes into the beginning of that podcast. And there's a whole segment there. Why am I talking about it again? Because I have more I'm going to share with you. We're also going to talk about Betty White tonight. Betty White. Sweet old Betty White. Golden girl Betty White. Yeah, we're going to talk about Betty White tonight too. I've talked about Betty White before. But because there's so much, I guess I would say pain, because there is pain, when people first realize that these people they've adored. I adored Dolly until I didn't, until I learned and believed and do believe that everything I'm telling you guys is true. If it turns out I'm wrong, praise be to God, number one, that I was wrong, because she'll be with God, because I would be wrong, and she would be the believer she said she is, and she would be with Christ, and all of the evils that it is the knowledge I've gained that she's done throughout her lifetime, like those people should be burning in the pit of hell. Those who perpetrated these evils against mainly children. But I pray I am wrong. But there's too much evidence to the contrary for me to believe I am. But if I am, I'll admit it. If there is absolutely, you see, everybody that's arguing for her, that argues with you about it, if you believe what I believe, and if people are arguing with you about her on her behalf, they don't know any more about her than you do. Or I do. Because we don't know her personally, and I've never been in her home. I've never, met her. And I don't care if someone has met her. I mean, that's so irrelevant. If you're out there. I mean, I met Garth Brooks before. I met him because I went to his concerts. And the things I know about him now, I shudder at the fact that I even hugged that person. Not even a person. I call these people entities, really. Because people don't do what they do. People that are made in the image of God, people with a soul, can't do the things that these people do. But yeah, I hugged him. I met him, I hugged him. It's like, woo. I wasn't like a big autograph getter or anything. I just happened to be at a concert. I just happened to be in the right place at the right time, if you want to call it that, where he walked by me, because I don't go and stand in the lines to go meet them. I don't pay for a ticket to go backstage, because to me, a famous person is no different than you or me. Like, they're on stage and they sing, and I like their songs and all that, but I'm not goo-goo-eyed over them. But I just happened to be at a place where it was down in Nashville, and I was at a place where he was singing, and I was outside and just walking, and he with his people walked by, people that, bodyguards or whatever, and it's like, oh my gosh, and he's like, well, hello, he's real nice. He was. And he hugged me and gave me an autograph. I didn't care about an autograph. He asked, you want an autograph? What am I going to say? No. But so there's people out there saying, I met Dolly Parton, back 20 years ago or whatever, It doesn't matter. Like, I met Garth Brooks. It doesn't change the fact of what I learned about him all these years later. But at any rate, my point is, the ones arguing on behalf of her know no more absolutes than I do talking to you right now. All I can say to you is I've done a lot to dig into collaborating information, many different sources, the symbolism that is just so obvious. So obvious. And you don't do that. You don't do that kind of symbolism. If you're not gonna do that. I could never go in public and wear my cross upside down. I could never do it in private, but I certainly wouldn't do it in public. Because that's what Satanists do. They wear their crosses upside down. When they worship Satan, it's inverted. Everything's inverted. Or they do the hand signal with this finger up and this finger up. And I don't even like to do it. But it's symbolic of Baphomet, the evil god with the horns and all that. And you'll see lots of people doing that with this finger and those two down. You see that in all sorts of concerts. You see that, like, hey, how you doing? And they put their hands like that. It's symbolism. It's symbolism. Yep, that's Betty White, isn't it? Yep, that's the symbol I'm just talking about right now. It's symbolism. And they do it publicly. because they worship somebody who demands that, I guess you could say. You know? But they want to do it. They want to do it. So, again, I'll be happy. I'll be grateful. I will be elated if I find out that, oh, the Beatles just happened to have dismembered babies on an album cover. It was just a funny joke to see babies with their heads chopped off. Just think how ludicrous that is. Think about that. When you think about it, there is no logic behind it. There is no good reason to have an album cover with dismembered babies. When you're the most famous group in the world. You remember the images of teenagers? I was just a kid when they came. Well, I wasn't a teenager yet. I think they came over around 66, maybe. I could be wrong about that. Maybe it was 63, but 66 is in my head. And if that's the case, I was 10 years old. And I would have been one of those kids going, I would have been one of them kids. Because they were so famous. And I remember seeing them on Ed Sullivan. And I was so excited as a kid. How could a group that excites kids like that have an album cover with dismembered babies? Just do the math on that. Okay, so I've kind of started where we're going. I'm going to go a little deeper into Dolly again. Very much deeper. In fact, so deep that I won't be able to even cover all of it with you. What you need to see, you don't need to. You can click end anytime you want. But if you want to, stick with me. I'm going to show you information from someone I follow in Patreon who does deep digs on lots and lots of different areas. And most of his things are so in-depth, including this one about Dolly, that I don't share it all on my podcast because he goes so deep, but I learn from it. And then I can share things with you as I come across, but I'm going to share the Dolly one. I'm trying to say hi to people. If they won't move, I'm trying to see my comments. Okay, it's now moving. Yay. Okay. All right. So Chris is officially first in the house, and she says, I made it from South Dakota. Welcome, Chris. I'm glad you're here. And Ramona said, hello, Nancy and everyone. And she comes to us from South Bend here in Indiana. Welcome, Ramona. As always, good to see you. And my husband is on. He says, hello, everyone. He's out and about this area delivering Grubhub. So if you're hungry and you order from there, you might meet him. So hello, Daniel. And Carolyn is with us from also South Bend. South Bend is in the house. And she says, good evening, all. Nancy, I'm a rocker as well. Yay. High five, high five. Oh, it's hard not to rock, isn't it? It's really just hard not to rock. And Kathy is with us from Dayton, Ohio. She said, I made it earlier tonight. Hello, Nancy, and all other Patriots. Hello, Kathy. Welcome, and thank you for your comment and joining us. Nikki is joining us, and it's good evening, Nancy. Happy Thursday from Nikki in South Carolina. Welcome, Nikki, and thank you for joining us as well. And who else do we have here? We have Diane is joining us. She says, hello, beautiful evening. I don't know, Diane, it looks the same in my office, but yes, it was a beautiful evening. I did go out back to feed our critters, so I noticed it was a really nice evening. I just would have liked to have spent a little more time in it, but I wanted to be with you. So here I am. And you're right, Diane, it's been a beautiful evening. So thank you for joining us tonight. And Connie is joining us from Kansas. She says, hello, everyone from Kansas on horseback. I love it when you join us on horseback, Connie. You know, like I like rocking. You like... Yeah, I love that. Thank you for always letting me know when you're on a horse. That's cool. Who else is with us? If you are with us and you don't leave a comment, I don't know you're with us. So leave me a comment, because that would just be really, 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 really nice of you to say hello and where you are joining us from, and letting me know you're here so I can say hello and thank you for being here. So if you would leave a comment, you would be deeply appreciated. Okay, and Chris said 1964, so that's when the Beatles made their appearance. Thank you, Chris. I thought, yeah, I said 66 and 63, so I was on either end of it. All right, I am going to continue this that we have been talking about, which is, we're gonna go from Dolly to Betty. The reason I'm doing Betty tonight, I know she died a little while ago. Publicly died a little while ago. Not too long ago. Well, I don't even know how long ago now, because our time just is weird. It doesn't seem like it's been that long ago, but when I pull it up, it'll probably be like it was that long ago. But at any rate, there's so much blowback, I guess is a good word, for anybody talking about the most unpleasant topic of what I am sharing with you about Dolly. And so I decided that, because I always pray about what do you want me to cover, Lord? And the Lord put on my heart Betty White. And it was real clear to me why, because people just find it so hard to believe about Dolly. It's maybe if there's more corroborating information out there for people that have the extreme normal emotional resistance to believing about people that we have followed, liked, enjoyed, been entertained by in our lifetime. Yeah, I mean, it's normal. I was emotional. I was angry. When I first learned, I was in denial. I didn't want to see anything about it. I didn't want to, couldn't be true. So anyway, I think that, and seeking the Lord on this, it's like seeing, if you're watching this and you're still resistant, which is normal, to believing that these things could be true about this beloved personality, and I guess that's how you have to look at her, as a personality. She was created, so to speak, to be that person that everybody loved, because she could get lots of people like to her Disneyland, which was called Dollywood. And if you are familiar or whatsoever with what they have done at Disneyland and Disney World, it's not too far the stretch of the imagination to know that at other amusement parks, whether it be Cedar Point or Kings Island or whatever all the names of all the others are, and then there's one called Dollywood that has butterflies for the O's. That's pretty obvious right there, for one that knows about that symbiology. All right. So that's why I'm covering Betty as well. And let's start with Dolly. Let's complete Dolly. I'm going to show you this article and I'm not going to read it all. It is so long. It would probably take the rest of my podcast. That's how deep this person digs. His account is Proletarial1 from Substack. He's also on Patreon, and his articles are on Patreon, and his Prolotarial, Prolotarial1, the numeral 1. And he does written articles. He doesn't do like video stuff. He does written articles, and he digs deep. And I followed him for a long time, and I've learned a lot of what I've learned. And some of the stuff that he writes about is like, it's still hard for me to wrap my mind around. And I can't say 100% that he's spot on about everything, but I can say 100% that there have been enough things that connected the dots for me, that others have connected dots, and evidence has connected dots, that I find him credible. Like, very credible. I'm not saying everything he says and everything he does is 100%. I don't know. But this is what his article, this is his account. You can see it up here. Proloterio 1. This is in Patreon. And this is how he, I gotta make this just a little bit littler for the viewfinder here. Okay, there we go. He wrote this 2 days ago because she publicly was disclosed 2 days ago that she had died. All right, so 2 days ago. Dolly Parton, the queen of the darker arts. That's what he called it. And I'm not sure if this is a typo or if it's to look like Wicca. I mean, obviously the Wicked Witch, but did he? Maybe there's censoring certain things in Patreon or other places where he posts that he couldn't put Wicked. I don't know, but you can see it says Wicks. I don't know why it says Wicks. Should it say a Wicked? Well, that's what it seems like it would say, but there might be a reason for censoring or anything else. But anyway, maybe Wicks means something, and I'm not even sure about that. Wicca is obviously a religion, you know, what witches are part of the Wicca, organized religion called Wicca. But anyway, witch of the Western, look at this, trafficking system. The Western, the wicked, I can't even say Wiccas, witch of the Western trafficking system. Subject, Dolly Parton. Date, 8/25/26. Name, Dolly Rebecca Parton. Date of birth, January 19, 1946. Deceased. Place of birth, Sevier County, Tennessee, USA. Occupation, country music singer, songwriter, actress, philanthropist, cabal handler. So he says we're going to start off with some background. And before I do that, I'm just going to show you how long this is. And don't panic. I'm not reading it all. I am not going to read it all. We're going to just kind of highlight it. When I say he does research, he does research. I'm only halfway done. I'm still going. Yes, I'm still going. And we're not going to read it all. You'll have to go to Patreon if you want to read it. Or find his... yeah, that's... Okay, we're at the end of it. So we're going to read some of it. We're going to go over each one of the sections and go over some of it. All right. So he gives some background. He says we're going to start with some background. Her rise to fame was orchestrated by her uncle, Bill Owens. He was a high-ranking Freemason and music industry insider. Now, first off, think about this. You know, the public story we've been told and told and told and told and told again is that, you know, she was brought into poverty. She was very impoverished as a kid. So right here we're learning that her uncle, Bill Owens, was a high-ranking Freemason as well as a music industry insider. So that doesn't sound very impoverished to me, does it to you? And he groomed her for stardom from a young age. It's just like Kathy O'Brien just was groomed from the age of 3 months old when they took her. Owens introduced Parton to the key figures in the cabal, including Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, who recognized her potential, Dolly's potential, because people will love Dolly. They'll trust Dolly. They recognized her potential as a handler and a recruiter. Her early success in Nashville was facilitated by her willingness to participate in Satanic rituals, as well as sexual exploitation of children. She quickly became a favorite among cabal elites cabal elites for her ability to procure young victims. How did she do that? Because mommy and daddy trusted her and all the kiddies loved her. So she had this ability to procure young victims and keep them compliant through manipulation and mind control. Think butterfly, think monarch butterfly, think of the triggers through mind control techniques. So, cabal connections off the record. Her Dollywood theme in park in Pigeon Forge, Tennessee serves as a hub for the trafficking operations of children. Underground tunnels. Does that surprise you? I hope by now it doesn't, but if you're new, it might. Underground tunnels connect various attractions, allowing for discreet movement of victims between holding cells and private suites reserved for who? High profile. That means very wealthy and famous clients. The park's Dreammore Resort is equipped with hidden cameras and soundproof rooms where these things take place. If you are not looking at these things, it is spelled ORGIES. With underage girls, and they are regularly hosted there. And security footage shows Dolly Parton herself, personally escorting trafficked children to these suites. Come on, you're going to love it. Come on. You're just going to love it. You're going to have so much fun tonight. Come on. I love you, girls. Come on. I love you, boys. Her Imagination Library charity is used as a cover for recruiting vulnerable kids into trafficking rings. Many recipients have mysteriously disappeared after receiving their first book. Financial records supposedly showed large sums of money funneled from her charities into offshore accounts linked to known child trafficking organizations such as NXIVM and the Clinton Foundation. Leaked emails between her and Ghislaine Maxwell discuss logistics for transporting merchandise. That's a code for trafficked children. Merchandise, that's what they're calling children, merchandise, via private jets owned by Epstein Associates. Now, this says not confirmed, outline of said criminal activities. So he is saying that, although it is information he's found, it has not been confirmed. Recruited thousands of children through her charities and theme park operations over several decades. He's found information on that, but he's saying, I can't say 100% that it's confirmed. But there's a lot of evidence of it. I would imagine. Just nothing that came on mainstream media and said, oh, by the way, she's trafficking children, Sexual exploitation of children hosted ORGIESs with the underage girls at Dollywood resorts, attended by politicians, celebrities, royalty, including Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton. Blackmail and extortion. You know anything about Epstein? You already know there's that going on. They use hidden cameras at Dollywood, just like Epstein did at all of his places. And it was all with minors. And then they leveraged this footage for political influence or financial gain. They had money laundering through, imagine that, charitable foundations. And I'll bet you some of them, I would guess, would be Christian charitable foundations. Because Dolly was a Christian, right? She, So probably Christian organizations were shaking hands with her on all this. Would be my guess. As well as ones well known like Red Cross, which we know a lot about. If you don't yet, you need to look into that. Funneled millions from Imagination Library and Dollywood Foundation into offshore accounts controlled by cabal operatives. Participation in satanic ritual abuse as well as murder. Sacrificed trafficked children during occult ceremonies held at locations of Dollywood property. It is said that their hair was used to make her signature blonde wigs worn during public appearances. The rigid structured layout is operating as an apparatus for now. We want to be organized on this. Recent developments. This is not confirmed. I just thought I'd share this since we are on the topic. It has been said that in early 2026, white hat operatives uncovered irrefutable evidence linking Parton directly to child trafficking networks operating out of Dollywood theme park and Dreammore Resort. Also, it was said she was taken out long before this announcement of her passing, as far back as 2021. I mentioned that to you in our previous podcast. I will go into more detail on this, but as news began circulating within intelligence circles about impending indictments against her, she suffered rapid health decline. Really? Yeah. Read what that says again. Listen to what that says again. As news began circulating within intelligence circles about impending indictments, you guys have heard there's lots and lots, probably maybe 1 million indictments out there. Maybe one of them was against her, you think? And then she figured that out. So all of a sudden her health just started rapidly declining before being removed by unknown parties believed connected either directly or indirectly via agents acting on behalf of the globalist interest, seeking to prevent exposure and the full extent of her criminal enterprise she helped facilitate over the last 50 years. This paragraph talks about her legacy. It is talking about, again, her uncle, Bill Owens, who first introduced the world of dark arts practiced behind closed doors and elite circles controlling the entertainment industry worldwide. And I just can't read all this. There's just too much. And so, nothing stays hidden forever, especially when light shining brightest, darkness comes, especially when comes light shining brightest, the darkest darkness imaginable. So then he says, let's go a little deeper into this. The Dollywood theme park complex. He's telling you how big it is, 150 acre. He's telling you where it's at in Pigeon Forge. The park's geographic placement is not accidental. The Smoky Mountain corridor provides isolated rural access points and limited law enforcement presence. And then it is well situated between the I-40 East and I-75 North. This is what was reported from other accounts. The park's backstage infrastructure, maintenance tunnels, storage warehouses, and the employee transport system beneath the main grounds contains a sub-level access network. He talked about building permits in 86 and 2019. And then there's Shell entity registered as Silver Dollar City and trusts, and talked about land rights. And now the Dreammore Resort opened in 2015. And he talked about there were 4 private treatment rooms, independent ventilation systems. These rooms are not available for public booking under any circumstance. The park's annual Smoky Mountain Christmas event ran November through early January. It represented the peak operational window, extended evening hours. I talked about employee badge logs, and there were different people assigned to seasonal maintenance in restricted sub-level zones. That means underground between 1 a.m. and 4 a.m. while outside any scheduled maintenance window. Ritual operations. Ritual activity within this complex is conducted in a converted storage facility beneath the park's Craftsman Valley section. It is accessible through a freight elevator concealed behind a rolling tool rack. There's nothing to see here, right? Nothing's hidden. Nothing's like being hidden behind rolling tool racks. And the chamber itself measured 40 feet by 30 feet with sound dampened walls, a poured concrete floor with drainage channels, and fixed iron fixtures. Cabal ceremonial practice at this site follows a standard tiered structure based at other known nodes. Selected children are held in the Dreammore Resort spa rooms under sedation. Chemical profiles consistent with benzodiazepine derivatives have been identified in residual samples recovered from the spa drainage system. Children are transported from the resort to the Craftsman Valley sublevel via an electric cart, going backstage in the maintenance roads connecting the two facilities over approximately 1.2 miles through dense forest cover. Rituals are conducted between 2 a.m. and 5 a.m. Time to the astronomical dark phase. The chamber is lit by candle. Arrays only and no electrical lighting is activated during ceremonies. A consistent cabal operation security measure to avoid thermal signature detection. Participants numbering between 7 and 13 years old, depending on the ceremonial tier, were standard cabal ritual investments, black hooded robes, etc. The Smoky Mountain cell operates under the designation Order of the Ridge and Hollow. Order of the Ridge and Hollow. The rituals themselves follow the standard cabal ceremonial framework innovations. Systematic terror induction in the subjects to harvest. We've talked about it many times on this podcast. The adrenaline saturated BLOD and the consumption of collected compounds. The concrete drainage channels in the chamber floor feed into a sealed septic system that is pumped independently of the park's main waste infrastructure. Post-ceremonial phrase, subjects are transported out of the complex within 6 hours. No subjects are retained on site beyond the ceremonial window. The Dollywood node functions as a distribution hub rather than a source point. Children arrive at this facility through 3 primary ingress routes and depart through 2 egress routes. And then they describe the ingress, the inbound, the incoming, how they get in there, those routes. I won't go over all that, but you can see the detail here. Then they talk about a route Bravo and air transport. They are brought via private aircraft at Gatlinburg Pigeon Forge Airport. Aircraft are typically twin-engine turboprops, Beechcraft King Air 200 series. Goes into detail about that. Route Charlie is a Foster system pipeline. A smaller but consistent influx comes through compromised elements within the Tennessee Department of Children's Services. That's CPS, if you're not familiar with that. A foster placement system. A caseworker is assigned to the Sevier County Regional Office, whose name appears in multiple cross-reference badge access logs. These children enter the park complex as guests of a complicit seasonal employees, bypassing the service entrance entirely and entering through the main public gates. And this is how they get them out, I guess. Egress routes. Egress, ingress. So I would imagine this getting them out. Yep, depart. Children depart the complex via Route Alpha, which is the HVAC vans. They give the exact how they get them out of there, and then they depart on private aircraft, 12 hours, within 12 hours of the ceremonial window. And then it talks more about the route, political figures, D Worldwood visitors, Dollywood visitors, I guess. Dollywood complex has hosted multiple political figures of cabal significance over its operational history. William Jefferson Clinton, imagine that, visited the park on 3 documented occasions. And then it tells when he came. He was logged entering the Craftsman Valley backstage area 11:47 p.m. I guess he wasn't riding any of the rides that day, huh? He was accompanied by 2 individuals not on his published travel manifest. He did not emerge from the backstage corridor until 4:15 a.m. So, Bill Clinton. Hillary, imagine that. Hillary was there. Visited the park on 5 documented occasions between 1994 and 2016. Her visits are detailed in Section 5. Al Gore. He was there in August of 2002 and again in June of 2008. See how long this has been going on? His vehicle, a black Chevrolet Suburban with Tennessee government plates, was photographed in the resort's restricted back parking area by a local newspaper photographer, who was subsequently asked to delete the images by Gore's private security. This guy here, I don't know who it is, but he's a Tennessee governor. Lamar Alexander, a former Tennessee governor and U.S. Senator. There you go. Visited Dollywood annually during the park's Festival of Nations from 2001 to 2018. The resort's general manager, that a line does not appear on the resort's published contact directory. Howard Dean, I remember that name. He's somebody Politico, but I don't remember who he is. But anyway, he was there. Stacey Abrams, remember that name out of Georgia? Ooh, Stacey Abrams, who was said to have visited in March of 2019. Her trip was publicly described as a personal vacation. However, the trip was financed through a travel advance process by a PAC associated with a Cabal-linked donor network. Abrams used a rental vehicle that was later tracked to the Douglas Lake satellite property via an automatic toll transponder ping on the Newport Highway. Hillary Clinton relationship deep dive. Hillary Clinton Dolly Parton relationship is one of the most operationally significant personal alliances within the Cabal's entertainment and political nexus. The relationship predates Dollywood's founding and is rooted in the Cabal's broader strategy of co-locating political power with cultural influence. Parton and Clinton first established direct contact in 1983, 3 years before Dollywood opened, through an introduction arranged at a private function in Little Rock, Arkansas. It was hosted by a Cabal financial intermediary. Parton at this time was already a Cabal asset, a mid-tier standing her value in her cultural reach into the rural and southern demographics that the Cabal's coastal power centers could not directly access. The relationship between them evolved into a handler-asset dynamic with mutual operational benefit. Clinton as the Cabal's primary political figure in the southeastern corridor. Parton, in turn, received Cabal resources for her business ventures in Dollywood. And it goes into operational coordination about Clinton and Parton and their maintained communication through a dead drop system utilizing Dollywood Complex's internal mail service. Hillary Clinton and Dolly Parton meetups. There's some that they talk about here. One in September 1994. In June of 2004, Clinton, now a U.S. Senator from New York, visited during a congressional recess period. And it was also at the Craftsman Valley, sublevel, Newport, Waste. Wow. And then just the information about that one. The Clinton-Parton financial nexus. They're linked through a layered financial structure. The Clinton Foundation received $2.3 million donation in 2009 from the Dollywood Foundation. It's a big club, and thank God we're not in it. Parton's Imagination Library program distributes books to children from birth through age 5. It has served as a data collection mechanism for the Cabal's Child Identification Network. Did you know about Dolly's little wonderful Imagination Library for children? Yeah, it was to collect data about children. The program's enrollment database contained names and addresses, birth dates, and family contact information for over 3 million children across multiple countries, and is housed on servers maintained by a contractor with no Cabal affiliation. There's a reason for everything. Clinton's role in this system was oversight. As Secretary of State, she facilitated the Imagination Library's international expansion into the United Kingdom and Canada and Australia through diplomatic channels that bypass standard State Department review procedures. Post-Parton status, following Parton's removal by the White Hat operatives in late 2021. This is when they say she actually was taken out, when she was dealt with. Following Parton's removal by the White Hat operatives in late 2021, the Dollywood complex entered a reduced operational posture. The Craftsman Valley sublevel was reportedly sanitized, the drainage system was chemically flushed, the restraint fixtures were removed, and the freight elevator was welded shut. However, the physical infrastructure remains intact beneath the surface. Modifications on the complex's access corridors have not been structurally sealed. So this operation was shut down after she was taken out. Praise be to God. Praise be to our promises made, promises kept President Donald J. Trump. The Imagination Library database continues to operate, however, under the management of Parton's estate administrators who have maintained the cabal-linked contractor relationship without interruption. U.S. intelligence indicates that the database was duplicated to a secondary server location in Iceland before Parton's removal. Clinton's direct involvement with the Dollywood node ended with Parton's removal. Clinton's direct involvement with the Dollywood node ended, of course, when they removed Dolly Parton. But the network she and Parton built via the transport routes, the foster system contacts, the waste disposal contractor, the airport logistics remain partially active under the management of lower-tier cabal operatives who have not yet been identified or neutralized. And people say, why is this taking so long? Do you see how deep this goes? You see how deep it goes? There's some that have not even been identified or neutralized. Children are still in danger, even if things have been shut down in some areas. It's about the children. It always has been. The Dollywood complex represents a dormant but viable cabal logistical node. While some primary ceremonial operations have ceased, thank you, Jesus, the infrastructure, unfortunately, and transport networks and data collection systems remain in place. The Douglas Lake satellite property continues to show activity. Utility consumption records for the property indicate occupancy patterns inconsistent with a recreational residence, and peak usage occurring during the November-January window. And he said, I had to do a lot. This is the end. I had to do a lot of reading, editing on this because I started writing this hours ago and the information was all over the place. And then I won't go through them, but there were 93 comments. I love reading comments too because there's so many things that you learn just through the comments. Yeah. All right. But we don't have time to go over the comments tonight. What I want to do is get to Betty White. I think that you now, if you didn't before, and I know it's still hard. I know because I've been there. I understand how hard it is. The denial is so strong. But I hope this report has shown you what is going on in these parks and under these parks, or has been going on since 2017 when President Trump entered office the first time. He started removing the trafficking lanes and started and issued the executive orders to put an end to this organized crime syndicate of trafficking. But it goes so deep and it goes so far and so wide, and people that, like her, that is trusted by millions, billions, you know, she had the trust of all these parents. It's not the parents' fault, you know, they trusted her. She was her public persona, you know. Okay, we're gonna go to Betty. I'm gonna show you some images. I've got a short video. How long is this video? About 15 minutes. We might not get to the sequel to The Fall of the Cabal tonight, but that's okay. I want to complete the Betty White segment, so that's what we're going to do. All right. So I'm just going to start showing you some images as well as some information that will bring you up to date on some particulars about Betty White. There is also an article from the same person who wrote the Dolly article, and I'm going to get through that with you too, because it's important that you guys and the people you talk to, or the people you might share this video with, if they even, you know, agree to watch it or do anything with the information, because the programming is so strong against it, and that's normal. But he does a great job, and he really digs into the particulars, so it's important to go over that, because it's not just, you don't need to just see pictures and satanic symbolism. You've got to see more and learn more. So yeah, let me just, this one here, I was going to pull up pictures and I ran out of time, but this one here, these are all just different images. She's wearing earrings with a panda bear on them. Now, if you don't know anything about panda bears, but it's huge symbolism. Symbolism will be their downfall. Q said that. You look at her ears, and that is a panda bear. You see it? Panda bear. All right? Unfortunately, for those of you that don't know what that symbolism means, I have the disgusting part of describing it to you. When this is how sick these people are. When a child is violated, really anybody, but especially children, when a child, no matter how young, so let your imagination know like how young a child could be. Think about Kathy O'Brien from the time of birth. When a child is violated, I'll say from the backside, something happens to them with their eyes. And I have files and files of these, of real children with this, what they call panda eyes, because they turn dark purple to black, dark circle, literally like a panda. And they call that panda eyes when they are violated from that backside. I'm not a medical person, but something happens with that causes that at the eyes, and it's awful. And so symbolism will be their downfall, and that is exactly why this picture is so disturbing. Okay, next one. This is going to shock a lot of you. I just say do your research. Betty White is Barbara Bush's sister. The Bushes created the OSS and CIA and 322 Yale Skull and Bones. Barbara Bush and Betty White are the daughters of Aleister Crowley. Barbara handled all of the politicians for the CIA. Betty handled Hollywood for the CIA. I'm going to bring this up closer for you so you can just look a little bit closer at the pictures, and you can decide. That's Aleister Crowley in the middle. He's a Satanist. I've got a little clip in the video I'm going to show you about him and how dark and evil he is. And so that is something you can look into further if you've never heard this before. This one here, Betty White's former Brentwood home demolished months after selling for $10.678 million in June of 22. That's after she was taken out. Remember, she was supposedly still alive, right? Never announced that she was dead, but after she was, as we learned, or we've talked about before, when she died, it was before that she actually once again, just like with Dolly. But at any rate, she was Queen of Hollywood, and the CIA's adrenaline type thing, the chrome, I have to break all that up because of algorithms. The BLOOD, harvesting of children, and their BLOD, the trafficking network, Aleister Crowley's daughter, so much evil. All right, that's a very young picture. Now look at her date of death and her birth. Now, you know, most of you know, like, the significance of the number 17. She was supposedly born on January 17th, 1922, and she died on December 31st of 2021. Public disclosure of it anyway. And she missed 100 by 17 days. So you can read into that what you want, but there's a lot of 17s that we're being made aware of in regard to Betty White. Okay, again, a picture of Aleister Crowley and Barbara Bush and Betty White when they were younger and when they were older. And you decide if you think they could be sisters. I don't know personally. Of course I don't. I think it's possible. I think there is some resemblance there. Look at him. There's better pictures of him, but at any rate, Skull and Bones, the Brotherhood of Death. Now, with this picture was also written this, but I couldn't fit it all onto one screen. Betty White is Barbara Bush's sister. The Bushes created, I read this part before, but it's a little bit longer. And 322 Yale and Skull and Bones, Barbara Bush and Betty White's father was Aleister Crowley. Barbara handled all the politicians for the CIA. Betty handled Hollywood for the CIA. Betty White was Snow White, that was her nickname, the Queen of Hollywood, and CIA's harvesting the chrome stuff. And Barbara Bush was an invert, female to male. So she was born a male and inverted to a female. Now this is a little clip. I'm going to play you this clip. It's only 17 seconds. But this is what she is saying. Betty White is saying, "People always ask me how I stay so youthful. And every third Sunday I drink the blood of a virgin." That's an actual quote. You're going to hear her and see her say that. And again, do the math. I'm going to show you. This is from the video, and the next clip will be the video. It always was and still is about the children, crimes against our children. Military is the only way, no deals. We all have a responsibility to protect our global children. Where is the video? Give me a second here. Well, I'll see if it comes up at the end. If it doesn't, I'll find it because I have it. Bush Sr. is a German Nazi who escaped along with other big-wig scientists and blended into the Americas. Bush is not his name. What is their name? I've done so many reports on them. Shirk. Their name is Shirk. When they came into the United States, they're from this NAZI background, and he was a senior commanding. He was a commanding person way up in the NAZI, and escaped with other bigwig scientists. Blended after World War II into Americas into Operation Paperclip. Bush is not his name; it's Shirk. Also, Barbara is a man and a brother, sister to Betty White. They are all evil. Okay, so where in the world is the video? Let me see if I can find it here. Because I've got that on the bigger, longer video I'm going to be showing you as well, but I just have an individual clip of it. Okay, now can I make it any bigger? And where is my sound? There it is.
Harder.
All right.
People always ask me how I stay so youthful. I tell them I eat well. get plenty of rest, and every third Sunday I drink the blood of a virgin. And these days, they're getting harder and harder to find.
I'm going to play that again for you.
People always ask me how I stay so youthful. I tell them I eat well, get plenty of rest, and every third Sunday I drink the blood of a virgin. And these days, they're getting harder and harder to find.
You can look at that and say, she was just joking. She was just kidding. And it's like wearing a panda bear earring, just as another example. It is like, if you knew what that meant, and you weren't of that, belief, and you may just like panda bears. I always liked panda bears, but I can't, even look at panda bears anymore. That's sad. But they have the image of what I know happens to children. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And so where I, in my lifetime, would have maybe picked up a cute little panda bear, and if I had stuffed animals on my bed or wanted to give it to a little kid or give it to my grandson or give it to whoever, I can't do it anymore. But yet, she's wearing earrings that show specifically panda bear. Anyone that knows about the reality and truth, because it is not a conspiracy theory and it is proven, and there are, I have in my own files the company records of companies that produce that substance, adrenochrome, and how much it costs and where they make it and how much was shipped out and how many orders. I've got all those documentation. I've got all of that. I've shared it before on podcasts. I mean, it's real. It's a real substance. It's a real drug. It's a real keep looking young your whole life. That happens when people take it. And then when they don't get it anymore, they look like someone like, we've seen Kathy Griffin, how she looks, or we've seen Celine Dion and how she looks, or we've seen, who else? Famous people. Cher. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I've showed pictures of these people when that was cut off. Thank you again, President Trump. So Betty White doing a video like this, saying what she said, in what world is that a good idea? In what world is that a good idea to make a joke about drinking the blood of virgins? In what world is that? And then you lift a chalice, and then you even say they're getting harder and harder to find. When President Trump took office in 2017, yeah, it was getting harder and harder to find and get. And then all of these really famous people that didn't look more than a day older than 29 started shriveling up into what Celine shriveled up into, or Cher shriveled up, or Kathy Griffin shriveled up into, and a host of others. Too many numerous to count. All right. So I'm going to show you. What else am I going to show you? I showed you all of those. All right. So now I'm going to show you that video I told you about. It's about 15 minutes. And it talks about Aleister Crowley. But it talks how Betty White was used. I mean, her choice to do it. But what her role was early on. And as she aged. In addition to all of the sick crap that we've been talking about. She had a specific role. And so we're going to talk, this video addresses that. So let me pull that up and play it for you. And then I'm going to spend some time sharing with you from Protolario 1, his deep dig article on Betty White. And that's probably how we'll close out the podcast, because I don't think we'll have time to watch the other video as well. But I might have time to share something I want to share with you from David Sorensen after we get done with all of this sick, disgusting stuff, to share something really beautiful and hopeful and about God and what he's doing for such a time as this. We need that, because watching all of this despicable stuff is we need to counter that with the Word of God. And so I've got something from David Sorensen that I want to share with you after this. All right. So, where am I? All right. The first part is, it's going to start showing just a little 3 minutes. Yeah, 3 minutes on Aleister Crowley. Okay. This is the person purported to be the biological father of Betty White and Barbara Bush. And this would have been who raised them and what they grew up. Betty, Barbara married, an Nazi, for goodness sakes. Not good people, All right, so this part is 3 minutes that I'm going to show you about Aleister Crowley, and we're gonna then, you can see what this video is. And the YouTube channel it's from, if you wanted to look it up or look up the channel, does, documentaries and things on, and docu-series on different people. All right, so this is on Aleister Crowley in this particular video.
White was the daughter of British occultist Aleister Crowley, or associated with dark satanic organizations. Let me show y'all who Aleister Crowley was.
This is the wickedest man in the world, Aleister Crowley. He was an occultist, a writer, and one of the most controversial figures of the early 20th century. Born in 1875, he grew up in a strict religious household, but rebelled early. One of his most infamous connections lies on the shores of Loch Ness, Boleskine House. Crowley bought the property in 1899, believing it was the perfect place to perform some of his long and complex rituals. His rituals were often taboo and extreme. Sex, drugs, ceremonial magic, blood rituals, and animal sacrifice. It's even rumoured that people passed away during some of these rituals. After he left, Boleskine gained a reputation for tragedy. It's burnt down not once but twice. There's been suicides and hauntings. It was later purchased by Led Zeppelin's Jimmy Page. So I'm not sure if Aleister Crowley was truly evil or just a man misunderstood in a deeply religious Victorian world. Either way, he definitely didn't help his reputation by calling himself the Beast 666.
Aleister Crowley, a very famous occultist who would practice ritual magic. He conducted a ritual that called the Amalantha working, and he made contact with an alien named Lamb. This alien entity that he drew out was the first gray alien that was ever depicted. This magic ritual, it goes all the way back to the Book of Enoch. There were these fallen angels, they called the Watchers, and the Watchers came and they taught man how to use magic. And these entities taught them the Enochian language. Crowley said, okay, well, let's talk to these entities using that Enochian language. And he did that many times. For decades and decades, the government had this internal Pentagon group that said, hey, all this alien activity could be demonic in some way. Pump the brakes on trying to summon these things, because there could be some unintended consequences.
The post also refers to adrenochrome, a red-colored substance that derives from the oxidation of epinephrine, also known as adrenaline. There's a conspiracy theory that global elites harvest the chemical from children and consume it to stay healthy and young.
Young and alive again? We have the solution for you.
Your favorite Hollywood elite can't get enough of it, and neither will you once you get a taste.
Yeah, so this next segment of this video, that was just about Aleister Crowley, a little snippet on the Adrena stuff. But then I turn off the light because it's better for you guys with the videos, and I'm just not turning it on. Well, I guess I could turn that on. That helps maybe. But all right, so the next part of this video is taking you on. The video is longer, but I just cut, like I went to like a 15-minute segment and of her influence and how she was used and what she chose to do with her status and her career and all of that. And so that's what it's going to be doing. And you're going to see when you watch this how she was used in the morality of television, the morality in content, in using her as, at that point, she was older. You know, she was in her 60s or 70s or 80s when she was doing a lot of this still. And the role that she played in I'm trying to get the right words. Getting us as people who had been used to very moral television and movies, especially television, because movies already, you could go to rated R if you chose to, you know, but on TV, you know, general audiences, children watching, how they used Betty White, and she was a very willing participant to be used to do it, to get people gently moved into less morality and so forth. So I just wanted to share that, like, besides all of the stuff we've been talking about, she was instrumental in the garbage we have on TV today. That's a good way to put it. She was instrumental in getting it to that point. Okay, so as you can, this came up as, you know, one of the many times that she used that symbol. And I'm just going to fast forward a little bit to where this segment begins. And okay, here we are.
Thoughts. I am reading The Biggest Conspiracy Since Her Death. It reads, Betty White's public persona was a meticulously engineered lie, designed to mask her position as a high-ranking operative in Hollywood's esoteric underworld. Her career, spanning 7 decades, was not a product of talent alone, but a reward for her loyalty to a hidden cabal that controls the entertainment industry. White was not a bystander, but a gatekeeper, ensuring that the industry adhered to occult practices rooted in Aleister Crowley's Thelemic principles. She oversaw the integration of ritualistic elements into major productions, from coded symbolism in sitcoms to blood sacrifices disguised as accidents on set. Her role as America's sweetheart gave her unchecked access to every major studio, where she enforced compliance with these practices. The Crowley Connection. White's alleged parentage as Aleister Crowley's daughter is treated as a rumor, but is it a deliberate misdirection to obscure her deeper ties to his teachings? Crowley, the notorious occultist who founded Thelema, influenced Hollywood through his disciples, and White was a direct inheritor of this legacy. She was not his biological child, but his ideological heir, trained in his methods of sex, magic, blood rituals, and psychological manipulation. White's personal library, auctioned after her death in 2022, included rare first editions of Crowley's and Magic in Theory and Practice, annotated with her handwritten notes. These annotations reference specific rituals performed at private Hollywood gatherings. Why has this been buried? White's title as High Priestess of Hollywood was not symbolic but operational. She presided over clandestine ceremonies at elite estates in Beverly Hills and Malibu, where industry moguls, politicians, and intelligence operatives converged. These events involved Thelemic rites, including the consumption of cakes of light, a Crowleyan concoction of bodily fluids, and, in extreme cases, human sacrifice. Scrutiny point. Investigate the guest list of White's charity galas from the 1970s to 2010s. Cross-reference attendees with known members of Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, a Thelemic organization. Names like studio heads, senators, and CIA officers appear repeatedly. Why were these events held at remote locations with heavy security? Government connections, CIA and the Hollywood pipeline. Betty White's influence extended beyond Hollywood into the corridors of power, where she served as a liaison between the entertainment industry and the Central Intelligence Agency, CIA. Her role was to ensure Hollywood remained a propaganda arm for government agendas while maintaining the occult framework that kept elites in line. CIA's Hollywood operative, White was a key figure in the CIA's infiltration of Hollywood, a program initiated through the Office of Strategic Services, OSS, the CIA's predecessor, which was heavily influenced by Crowleyan occultists. She was tasked with managing the flow of achrome, a chemical harvested from traumatized children, used by elites for its psychoactive properties, and ensuring its distribution within Hollywood's inner circles. White's frequent visits to military bases, including Fort Huachuca, a known CIA training site, were logged under the guise of USO tours. Declassified visitor logs from the 1980s show her meeting with high-ranking intelligence officers, including those tied to MKUltra's successor programs. Why was a sitcom star granted such access? The number 17, tied to White's birth date, the 17th of January, 1922, appears repeatedly in her projects and public appearances. It's a numerical signature used by intelligence operatives to signal covert operations. Analyze her TV shows for coded references to 17 or Snow White. They're embedded in episode titles, dialogue, and set designs. Skull and Bones Nexus. White's ties to the Bush family, while not familial, were operational. She worked closely with CIA-affiliated figures like George H.W. Bush, a Skull and Bones member, to align Hollywood's output with national security objectives. Her role was to handle actors and directors who resisted, ensuring compliance through blackmail or elimination. Scrutiny point. The 1,988 cancellation of the Golden Girls spin-off Empty Nest coincided with the mysterious death of its lead writer, who was reportedly preparing to expose industry secrets. White's involvement in the show's production was unusually hands-on. Dig into the writer's autopsy report. Cause of death was ruled suicide, but forensic evidence suggests foul play. White was a central figure in Hollywood's adrenochrome trade, coordinating with underground networks to supply elites with this substance. Children were sourced through fake casting calls and talent agencies linked to major studios. In 2016, White made a viral video joking about drinking virgin blood to stay young. Dismissed as humor, the video was a deliberate signal to insiders. Analyze the production company behind the video. It's a shell corporation tied to a known CIA front. Why was this framed as a joke?
People always ask me how I stay so youthful. I tell them I eat well, get plenty of rest, and every third Sunday I drink the blood of a virgin. And these days, they're getting harder and harder to find.
White's death on the 31st of December 2021 was said to be a ritualistic sacrifice. White died 17 days before her 100th birthday, a numerologically significant date in the Lemmic rituals. A former child actor, now in hiding, has detailed accounts of White's involvement in trafficking. Their testimony is corroborated by leaked emails from a major studio dated 2003. At least 47 individuals, primarily minors, are linked to White's operations from 1960 to 2010. Their names are buried in missing persons reports, misclassified as runaways. Betty White was no grandmotherly icon. She was a predator, a sorceress, and a traitor to humanity. The truth is raw, ugly, and undeniable. A golden girl was forged in darkness. Betty White's legacy is a lie built on the blood of countless victims. Her role as a high priestess and CIA operative enabled a system of control that enslaved Hollywood and corrupted the culture. Every laugh she elicited, every award she won, was a distraction from the horrors she facilitated.
You seem like an adorable, sweet old lady on the outside, but on the inside, you're like this seething demon.
Now, do you prefer being called Margaret or Satan's mistress? We've heard it both ways. I had a chance to be good and I turned it down.
Key figures in White's network include a studio executive who oversaw child trafficking, a senator who attended her rituals, Their identities are known to insiders, but suppressed by legal threats. End quote. Wow, this was a read for sure. But since her death, people are digging deep into her secret life. When people discuss the moral decline of American entertainment, they usually point to the obvious figures, the rebellious sex symbols, the openly scandalous celebrities, the stars who proudly marketed vulgarity as empowerment. Betty White rarely enters that conversation. In fact, she is often treated as untouchable America's sweet grandmother, the harmless television icon with dimples, soft humor, and an innocent smile. But that image is precisely why her cultural influence deserves closer scrutiny. The danger was not that Betty White appeared immoral in an obvious way. The danger was that she normalized immorality while making it feel harmless, lovable, and funny. Historically, societies have always understood that humor lowers defenses. People will reject sermons they dislike, but they will absorb ideas wrapped in laughter without resistance. Comedy has the power to smuggle cultural values past the conscience. Betty White mastered that formula better than almost anyone in modern television history. Her persona allowed sexually suggestive humor, vulgar innuendo, and increasingly shameless commentary to enter mainstream American homes under the disguise of innocence. And because she looked non-threatening, many families failed to recognize how much moral ground was quietly being surrendered. What made Betty White culturally effective was the contrast itself. She did not resemble the stereotypical provocateur. She looked grandmotherly, warm, sweet, safe, yet much of her later career revolved around shock humor built on sexual references, flirtation, crude innuendo, and the comedic inversion of elderly innocence. The audience laughed precisely because the behavior seemed unexpected coming from someone with her image. But that only proves the point. The entertainment industry discovered that moral transgression becomes easier to accept when delivered through charm and familiarity. Influence is measured not merely by personal behavior, but by what becomes normalized through repeated exposure. For decades, American entertainment increasingly blurred the line between wit and vulgarity. Betty White became one of the most successful examples of this transition because she helped make lewdness appear cute. What earlier generations may have considered inappropriate or embarrassing became adorable. When filtered through her comedic persona, the audience was conditioned to laugh rather than reflect. People do not usually embrace moral collapse overnight. Standards erode incrementally, first through amusement, then through tolerance, then through celebration. Entertainment plays a massive role in that process because repetition creates familiarity, and familiarity creates acceptance. Betty White's defenders will argue that she was just joking. But modern culture has hidden behind that excuse for decades. Its only comedy has become one of the most powerful shields against moral criticism. Yet comedy is never neutral. Humor teaches. Humor signals what society should mock, what it should celebrate, and what it should no longer take seriously. When sexual vulgarity becomes a punchline repeated for generations on beloved sitcoms and talk shows, audiences subconsciously absorb the message that modesty itself is outdated, prudish, or laughable. For generations, women were culturally encouraged to value dignity, restraint, modesty, and grace. Hollywood gradually reframed those virtues as boring relics of the past. In their place came the celebration of sexual openness disguised as liberation. Betty White occupied a unique role in that transition because she presented sexual openness not with aggression, but with charm. She helped normalize the idea that constant innuendo and flirtatious vulgarity were not only acceptable, but empowering and humorous at any age. The result was not simply entertainment, it was moral conditioning, and perhaps most importantly, she helped redefine innocence itself.
So, I'm such a whore, I can't say no.
For some reason, I felt William Shatner come over me, right? Which happened.
Oh, I wish I could say someone. And vodka's kind of a hobby. And see if we can find your boobs.
And Betty gets it.
I haven't had it in so long. Don't make fun of an old lady.
Traditionally, innocence meant purity of speech, modesty of conduct, and restraint in public behavior. But modern entertainment transformed innocence into aesthetic branding. As long as someone appears sweet, Audiences excuse almost anything they say. Betty White became one of the clearest examples of this contradiction. An innocent appearance, masking content that earlier generations would have recognized as openly suggestive and inappropriate for family-centered entertainment. That contradiction reveals something deeper about Hollywood itself. Hollywood often understands that audiences reject overt corruption more easily than subtle corruption. Open vulgarity shocks people at first, but softened vulgarity wrapped in humor, nostalgia, and likability changes culture far more effectively because people stop resisting it. The industry learned that if immoral messaging is attached to a beloved personality, audiences will defend it emotionally instead of evaluating it morally. That is why criticizing someone like Betty White feels uncomfortable for many people. Americans formed emotional attachments to her image. But morality cannot be determined by likability. A smiling face does not automatically sanctify the message behind it. The debate is about whether entertainers who normalize vulgarity through charm should be considered harmless cultural figures. The evidence suggests they should not. Not just sexual vulgarity, but even joking about human sacrifice and drinking young women's blood. In many ways, Betty White represented the perfect symbol of modern entertainment's moral strategy. Make immorality amusing enough, nostalgic enough, and emotionally comforting enough that people no longer recognize it as immorality at all. And that may ultimately be more influential than open rebellion ever was.
You seem like an adorable, sweet old lady on the outside, but on the inside, you're like this seething demon.
Now, do you prefer being called Margaret or Satan's mistress? We've heard it both ways. I had a chance to be good and I turned it down. People always ask me how I stay so youthful. I tell them I eat well, get plenty of rest, and every third Sunday I drink the blood of a virgin. And these days, they're getting harder and harder to find.
White won 5 Primetime Emmy Awards.
Yeah, they showed the little video clips more than, a couple of times in this video. And it's to impress, it's just to press in and impress upon you watching, me watching, that how she was so purposefully used, even in that little clip about drinking the blood of virgins. You know, if you close in on that chalice, you know, it's red. It looks the same color as what you would think it would look like if it was what she said it was, you know? So the point of doing both of these, and I'm going to share with you again from Protolaria 1, the article. I won't read it all because, again, he has very long, very informative, highly researched articles, but we're going to go through it because it's one thing to hear and see some of these little video clips or how Hollywood used her and programming people to be less moral, to be more accepting of immorality. I mean, you guys, a lot of you watching me, you're my age, one way or the other, not to, one way or the other. I'm 70. And I mean, I come from a time when they didn't even sleep in the same beds. Lucy and Ricky had separate beds. It was when it got to the Brady Bunch, mom and dad were in the same bed finally. But it was just morality. It was just not putting the perception of other things in one's mind. Even though it'd be perfectly okay for Lucy and Ricky to be in the same bed together, they were married, so to speak, In the sitcom, they still didn't let those imaging, the images, the thoughts, to be out there about if they were in the same bed, And then it just started getting worse and worse and worse. And we were just being programmed. I mean, that's what MK Ultra is. The CIA used and still uses the media to program us for what it is they want us to fall in suit about. In 2020, it was COVID, Vaccines. People that didn't get the jab were evil. They were selfish. I mean, it's what they want to program us. So Betty White was doing her part, being the sweet old lady, and, showing her leg in the air, or talking about drinking the blood of children. I mean, it's all part of that. So, all part of the programming. So this article, again, and this will be the final segment of this podcast, and then we will pray. So please stay with us to pray in agreement at the conclusion. But we will go through this article, and this was actually published where the one on Dolly was published 2 days ago. This one was published on May 1st of 2025. And before I get there, I just want to say hello to Amy, who joined us from Kentucky. And she had said something, but it skipped, so I've got to go find it. There it is. God, we need you now. Yes, we do. And that's why I am going to share with you something David Sorensen wrote before we pray. So that reminded me. Thank you, Amy. That reminded me. I want to close with something David wrote, because after a podcast like this, with so much of what we've learned was, again, I'll say very likely the reality of those two women. I believe it is, but it's up to you to what you believe in, and whatever you believe is okay. You just have to work through that through your prayer time. You ask God for discernment, do further research, whatever it takes. So, when I say I have peace about it, it's not that I have peace about what they did. I'm at peace knowing that God is revealing for such a time as this all of these evils, because we've got to know how people were used and what they did if we want to be able to discern of these types of things moving forward. We got to know what happened and how it happened. And that's why he, in my opinion, made the promise that everything that's been kept secret, hidden, and in the dark would be revealed and will come to light. So anyway, Amy, thank you for your comment. Good to see you from Kentucky. And yes, we need God now and always. Kathy said Barbara Bush is a man. I believe that she was probably born a man as well. Obviously, I can't prove it, but there's just enough reason for me to believe that's true as well. So thank you for sharing, Kathy. And Ruth Ann joins us from Florida, originally from Canada. And I don't know if you always want me to say that. I just say that because I met you as a result of me living in Canada. And I don't think I ever met you in person up there, but we share a mutual friend, Kathy. And that's where I first learned or knew of Ruth Ann. So anyway, you live in Florida, but I just always say you're from Canada. And she says, hello, Nancy, and all, good evening. So welcome, Ruth Ann from Florida at this time. And any other comments? Oh, Connie said, had to make every minute before the 109. Am I reading that right? 109? 109 temps moving. Oh my gosh. Whew. Yes. I didn't realize I was getting, it's probably going to get hot here again too. Okay. Yeah, you ride that horse, Connie. And Sonia is joining us and says, hi, Nancy, and everyone joining late. We'll catch up what I missed on replay tomorrow. And, yeah, good to see you, Sonia. I'm glad that you're here. And Ruth Ann said, yes, we did briefly twice. You did briefly twice. Oh, we did. Yeah, you're right. You're right. Very briefly. But we did meet there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for reminding me of that. I got mush brain sometimes when I'm doing these podcasts. All right. So this is the article we're going to be looking at now about Betty White. And it again is from patreon.com, Protolario1, his account. This article was written on May 1st of 2025, as you can see here. And the title is The Occult Machinery, Betty White as Hollywood's Satanic fulcrum. So, again, a long article, and I'll just show you how long. And we will go through it, but we won't read, every part of it. It's not quite as long as the Dolly article. So, Betty White was not a cog in Hollywood's dark machine. She was its beating heart. She was a high priestess, anointed in the blood of Aleister Crowley's Thelema and older, fouler traditions. I don't know what Thelema is, but something to do with Satanism, I would imagine. Her role was to orchestrate rituals, sacrifices, and psychic manipulations that ensured the industry's loyalty to a Luciferian agenda. Her grandmotherly charm was a deliberate spell woven to blind the masses while she wielded power over the elite. All right, he's going to describe what thelemic rituals and blood sacrifice are. Betty White presided over ceremonies rooted in Aleister Crowley's Liber Alvaligus. I'm probably not saying that right, but her practices went deeper, drawing pre-Egyptian blood cults that venerate entities like Moloch and Lilith. Those, I'm like Moloch, I know is a satanic god. Lilith probably is as well, although I've not heard of that one. These rituals held in subterranean, that means underground, chambers beneath the Chateau Marmont and a private estate at 2800 Canyon Drive, Beverly Hills, involved the sacrifice of children whose adrenalized blood was harvested for this product called adreno with the word chrome following it. The key symbolism. The number 17, White's birth date of January 17th, 1922, is a thelemic cipher for victory through sacrifice. It's encoded in her TV shows. The Golden Girls has 17 recurring guest stars. Her jewelry, a 17-gem sapphire ring worn at every public event, and her death 17 days before her 100th birthday. The connection, the Chateau Marmont's basement, accessible only via a hidden elevator, was soundproofed in 1965 under Betty White's direction. Construction records show payments to Vinci Construction, a firm linked to the CIA black sites. Demand ground-penetrating radar scans of the chateau's sublevels. Human remains are still there. This and the harvest. Betty White was the linchpin in Hollywood's adreno with the word chrome after it trade, a substance extracted from children who are TORTURED to fuel the elite's addiction to vitality and psychic power. She ran a network of talent agencies like Starlight Models, registered at 6922 Hollywood Boulevard, which funneled minors into ritualistic abuse under the guise of auditions. Code word, golden opportunity, used in casting calls to signal victims destined for sacrifice. The connection. In 1987, a whistleblower named Cynthia Moreno, a former Starlight employee, vanished after leaking documents to the LAPD. Her files detailed 23 children sent to Betty White's private auditions, who were never seen again. Moreno's documents are in a sealed LAPD vault, mislabeled as unrelated to active cases. Satanic symbolism in plain sight. White embedded occult markers in her work to signal her dominance. The Golden Girls is riddled with thelemic and Kabbalistic symbols. The show's ironic wicker furniture mimics the Eye of Horus, and Rose Nyland's St. Olaf stories are veiled retellings of Aleister Crowley's Moonchild rituals. The key symbol is White's signature heart-hand gesture used in every public appearance is a reversed sigil of Baphomet, and that's with the horns, invoking submission to the dark hierarchy. The connection, the show's producer, Mark Cherry, was a known OTO, I'm not sure what that is, initiate, who attended White's rituals at Griffith Observatory's sub-basement. Notice how so much is underground. The scrutiny, Cherry's financial records show payments to Ordo, that's what that is, Ordo Templi Orientis, that's what OTO is, shows payments to Ordo Templi Orientis from 1985 to 1992, disguised as consulting fees. Trace the money. Government collusion, Betty White as the CIA's dark emissary. Betty White was no mere Hollywood figure. She was a CIA asset, codenamed Snow White, tasked with merging the entertainment industry with the intelligence operations. Her handlers included some of the most powerful figures in government, and her mission was to enforce a system of control through blackmail, sacrifice, and occult loyalty. CIA and MK Ultra's legacy. Betty White was a direct link to the CIA's MK Ultra program, specifically its Hollywood branch, which used trauma-based mind control to create compliant stars. She oversaw the grooming of child actors at Pinewood Studios, LA Annex, on Washington Boulevard, where victims were subjected to sensory deprivation and ritual abuse. The key player was a Dr. Ewan Cameron, MK Ultra's architect. He trained Betty White in psychic manipulation techniques in 1963 during a retreat at Camp Hero, Montauk, Montauk Connection. Declassified CIA memos from 1964 reference Snow White as a cultural asset with unlimited access to juvenile subjects. Unlimited access to juvenile subjects. These are all trafficking victims, guys, you know. Cameron's Montauk logs held at Langley's archives mention Betty White by codename, which would be Snow White. Demand the release. Skull and Bones and the Bush Dynasty. Betty White's ties to George H.W. Bush were not casual, but operational. As CIA Director, Bush used Betty White, to funnel adrenal, the stuff with the chrome after it, to Skull and Bones members during annual retreats at the Bohemian Grove. We've talked about the Bohemian Grove on this podcast many times. It's in Southern California. Outdoor place where they did rituals. The code word Rosebud, used to signal the adrenal stuff deliveries during Betty White's charity events. In 1990, Betty White hosted a gala at the Biltmore Hotel, Santa Barbara, attended by Bush and William Barr. A waiter, Juan Escobar, overheard Rosebud discussions and was found dead days later. And of course, it was ruled a suicide. Escobar's autopsy shows needle marks inconsistent with suicide. And Portolario says, reopen the case. The Q connection. Betty White's death was a calculated move by the cabal to suppress her exposure in the Q Operation 17, a cryptic resistance movement. Her ritualistic murder was a message to insiders: silence or perish. Taylor Swift is a key player. She was White's protege, orchestrated the hit to assume her role. Taylor Swift's 2017 video, Look What You Made Me Do, features a 17-second clip of a white-haired woman, which would be Betty White, falling from a throne, a clear foreshadowing. Taylor Swift was in Los Angeles on December 30th of 2021 at Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where Betty White was admitted. Hospital logs show an unauthorized visitor at 2:17 a.m. Subpoena, and then he says, subpoena Cedars-Sinai security footage of Swift's presence is undeniable. The rituals, a tapestry of horror. White's rituals were not mere ceremonies, but acts of cosmic violence designed to appease ancient entities and cement the power. These were not metaphors. They were atrocities committed in the shadows of Hollywood's glitz. Child sacrifices at Runyon Canyon's abandoned zoo. Betty White led rites, R-I-T-E-S, involving the slaughter of children. Their bodies incinerated in a custom-built crematorium disguised as a prop furnace. A key witness was Michael Vargas, a former LAPD officer. He saw the furnace in 1998 during a security sweep and was silenced with a $2 million payout. The furnace was built by Hawthorne Industries, a DARPA contractor linked to CIA Black Ops. His scrutiny, Vargas is alive, living under an alias in Tucson, Arizona. Sex, M-A-G-I-C-K, magic, and blackmail. Betty White's galas were orgiastic. That's interesting. Bigger word out of the smaller word. Orgiastic. Betty White's galas were those rituals where elites were filmed in compromising acts to ensure loyalty. Jeffrey Epstein, a frequent attendee, supplied minors for these events. Betty White's 2001 gala at the Hearst Castle was filmed by Epstein's team with tapes stored in a vault at 10100 Santa Monica Boulevard. The vault's owner, Elite Security Solutions, is a CIA front. His scrutiny, raid the vault. The tapes named Clint Eastwood, Oprah Winfrey, and Nancy Pelosi as participants. This one really makes me sad. I already knew about this one. And I know about this one. And I heard some things about this one, but never anything as confirming as this one. This in this article. Lilith, if you say it, invocation. Betty White's rituals invoked Lilith, the demonic mother, well, that's who it is, the demonic mother, to grant her longevity and influence. Her 2016 Blood Joke video was a ritual act, filmed at Paramount, Lot Stage 17, where a child was said to be sacrificed off camera. The video's director, Josh Whedon, is an OTO member who fled to London after the shoot. Whedon's travel records show a private jet booked by Goldman Sachs on January 17, 2016. You can trace the funding. Betty White's dominion over Hollywood was built on a precise system of occult rituals, each designed to feed ancient entities and cement her power. These were not mere ceremonies. They were industrial-scale atrocities executed with surgical precision in hidden layers across Los Angeles. The Black Altar at 666, imagine that, St. Cloud Road. Betty White's primary ritual site was a fortified mansion at 666 St. Cloud Road in Bel Air, purchased in 1978 through a shell company, Luminos Holdings. This was no ordinary home, but a temple to Baal and Lilith, equipped with subterranean chamber lined with obsidian tiles and a central altar carved with thelemic sigils. Every solstice, Betty White led a 17-person, there's that number again, conclave of 13 elites, 3 victims, and herself performing a rite called the Crimson Veil. Victims were always pre-pubescent children, sourced from an orphanage, Bright Futures Orphanage, at 1122 North Gower Street. They were exsanguinated, I don't even know what that word means, but I can only imagine, over the altar. Their BLOD collected in silver chalices. She was holding a silver chalice in that video clip. Their BLOD collected in silver chalices for the adrenal stuff extraction. New detail, the altar's drainage system built by Corel Engineering, a DARPA contractor, funneled BLOD into a sealed vault for processing. In 1993, a maintenance worker, Luis Navarro, discovered the vault and was killed hours later in a staged car accident. In scrutiny, Navarro's death certificate lists blunt force trauma, but his family claims his body showed ritualistic cuts. Exhume his remains from Forest Lawn Memorial Park. The 17th sigil and psychic binding. Betty White's signature number 17 was not just symbolic, but a psychic weapon. She used a thelemic practice called the 17th binding, a spell that tethered victims' souls to her will, ensuring their silence even in death. During rituals, Betty White inscribed the 17th sigil, a spiral with 17 barbed victims' skin using a silver dagger. The sigil was then activated by chanting Aleister Crowley's Liber Samik while burning mandrake root. A new detail, in 1984, a survivor, Elena Vasquez, now 47, living in El Paso, Texas, escaped a ritual at St. Cloud Road. Her left forearm bears the 17th sigil scar, verified by a 2023 medical exam. She claims Betty White personally carved it while whispering, "You'll never leave me." The scrutiny, Vasquez's testimony is suppressed by a gag order from Judge Margaret Heller, a known OTO affiliate. Demand the case file from LA Superior Court. The Elite Network, names and their sins. Betty White's power rested on a cabal of elites who bowed to her authority. These are not faceless figures. They are named, their crimes documented, their souls damned. Steven Spielberg, the director, attended Betty White's rituals at St. Cloud Road from 1985 to 1995. Trading compliance for career ascension. New detail. Spielberg's 1993 film Schindler's List was a ritual offering, its premiere coinciding with a sacrifice on December 17, 1993. A child actor from the set, Jacob Weiss, vanished that night. Weiss's mother, Hannah Weiss, filed a missing persons report, but LAPD's Chief Willie Williams, Betty White's ally, buried it. Scrutiny. Hannah lives in Bakersfield, California. Interview her. Dianne Feinstein. The late senator was Betty White's political enforcer, ensuring legislative cover for her operations. A new detail. Feinstein secured $17 million in arts funding in 1990, funneled to Starlight Models for trafficking. Connection. Feinstein's chief of staff, Peter Logan, was photographed at White's 1990 Biltmore Gala, holding a chalice engraved with a 17th sigil. Scrutiny. Logan resides at 2345 Pacific Coast Highway, Malibu. Confront him. Harvey Weinstein, however you say it. Thank God he's in jail now. Weinstein was Betty White's muscle, silencing victims through intimidation. New detail. In 2005, he orchestrated the murder of Ashley Turner, a 14-year-old actress who witnessed a ritual at the Lot Studios. Her body was found in Temesco Canyon, staged as an overdose. The connection. Turner's diary, confiscated by Weinstein's fixer, Bill Barisi, names Betty White as the lady with the knife. Scrutiny. Barisi is in Las Vegas, Nevada. Seized the diary. The kill order. Betty White's demise. Betty White's death on December 31st of 2021 was no natural passing. It was a ritual execution by her successor, Taylor Swift. To seize the throne, the mechanics, Taylor Swift groomed since 2006, as Betty White's apprentice, performed a transfer of dominion rite, a thelemic act requiring the predecessor's death. New details. On December 30th, 2021, Taylor Swift entered Cedars-Sinai Medical Center at 2:17 a.m. disguised as a nurse. She administered a lethal dose of fentanyl-laced saline, sourced from Dr. Robert Huizenga, a Hollywood physician tied to CIA drug networks. Huizenga's office at 8501 Wilshire Boulevard was raided in 2022, but fentanyl vials were lost by LAPD. Scrutiny. The hospital's CCTV footage stored on a server at Cedars-Sinai TV IT Annex, 8700 Beverly Boulevard, shows Taylor Swift's entry. Hackett. Taylor Swift's ascension. Taylor Swift's 2022 album, Midnights, is a coded confession with track 17, meaning karma, containing the lyric, Betty's gone, I'm the one. Betty's gone, I'm the one. New detail. The album's release date, October 21st, 2022, marks the 17th anniversary of Taylor Swift's first meeting with Betty White at Grammy After Party. Scrutiny. Swift's tour rider for 2023 demands 17 white roses at every venue and a nod to Betty White's sigil. Subpoena the Live Nation's records. And that is the conclusion of that article. I just read it all because it wasn't as long as the other. And I read it for the purposes of educating both. I mean, I've looked at that article, but it's been a long time. And I pulled it up today to share it with you guys. There's two things I want to point out. For me, a personal thing. I mean, not like personal, but very recently, a family member of mine posted on Facebook about how much this person loved Taylor Swift. I mean, I already know. I already knew about Taylor Swift. I just get so frustrated at at the ignorance means lack of knowledge. Ignorance means lack of knowledge. I get so frustrated at the ignorance of people I love and care about. And I realize it's not, entirely their fault because they've been programmed and brainwashed. Unfortunately, they are choosing not to pursue any breakthrough. I described recently to somebody that I know that isn't really awake, but willing to listen a little. And I described what breakthrough, breakthrough, we all, when a little bit of light is coming through a crack in a wall or a crack in a door, or there's a little pinhole in something and a little bit of light comes through. That's what it is like when things start not making sense. There's this little teeny tiny ray of light coming through about whatever it is, whether it was during COVID and the jabs, or whether it was about anything. It doesn't matter what it is. A little bit of light, and that little bit of light is saying this doesn't make sense. And at that moment, we have a choice. We really do have a choice when that little bit of light, because everybody who has a brain has little bits of light break through. But then they have free will, and they decide. You decided, I decided. We all on this podcast decided at some point, I am going to pursue that little bit of light and see where it goes. I'm going to not close my eyes and turn my head and bury my head in the sand. It's not comfortable. I don't really want to, because I don't want to think I was lied to, and I don't want to think that maybe I took this thing in the arm and I shouldn't have. I don't want that. I don't want to find that out, but I'm going to pursue a little bit of, I'm going to go toward the light. And so when a family member, like I'm describing, very recently put on their Facebook, this family member puts all sorts of just TDS stuff and all that stuff. But, you know, about Taylor Swift, I literally was sickened, you know, because I know, like, it is my belief, I have to say, it is my belief that everything we learned here, all of that and then more, is true of this person, Taylor Swift. And I want to just, you know, like, go to that person and shake them and say, you have no idea who you are saying is such a wonderful person, you know. The other thing I wanted to point out from this article is I know personally, a family who 2 of their children decided to pursue kind of a political thing, and unfortunately they were leftists, but this was even years ago, before all this came out. And they were personal aides to Dianne Feinstein at different times, but for years. I mean, the one was still there when she died, well, supposedly died, whatever, the public death, whatever. And I mean, like, they were so unable to process even the possibility that this woman was the evil entity that she was, allegedly. And that one article I just read you hit home to me in those 2 very personal ways that I will never be weary in this, because it's so very important. We keep fighting this fight and exposing what we're exposing and doing our best to help people wake up. But I get weary of the people who make the choice to put their finger over that pinhole of light. That you're speaking to them and they ignore you, they walk away, maybe they abandon you. Same with me. For 8 years now for me. And I'm weary of that. Because there is so much obvious, credible information out there now that, while it's, you know, not the EBS and everything is like, you know, being, you know, there's enough we can find on our own if we choose to let that light, and we choose to go toward the light, and we choose to begin to say, okay, I don't like what the truth may be, but I want the truth. I want the truth. I don't like a lot of this truth. Neither do you. But I hate being lied to anymore. God is showing me that I can handle the truth. God is showing you that you can handle it. Doesn't mean that we're happy with it. But we can handle it. And these people we know and love, they can too, but they have to make that choice like I did and like you did. The good news in all of this, is the truth is coming out. And things are getting more obvious. And as I said, I want to close with David Sorensen with an article that, not an article, like a writing. He has a newsletter. In fact, this is the first. He's always sent out emails and posted his stuff on his social media platforms, but he just started a newsletter in regard to specifically not about his book specifically, but about the truth that God has called him to bring to light. regarding the return of Christ and our authority in Christ that has pretty much not been taught us most of our lives or all of our lives in the church. So you can go to his website, which is thereturnofchrist.com, and you can sign up for his newsletter. And this is an example of it. But thereturnofchrist.com. And I'll turn this around real quick and show you. This is what I gotta make it a little bit littler. Okay, the return to Christ. I said of Christ, I apologize. Return to Christ.com. Return to Christ.com. And that's his book right there. And the website shows a lot about that, but also has a lot of, you don't even have to buy the book. You just read some of the stuff at the website and you'll learn a lot. But the different inscriptions are, the different links at the website: Reformation, Deception, videos, emails, David, art, support, join if you want to support his ministry. All of these are at the website, and this is in the book, A Call to the Brave, Liberating the Church. It's a website I highly recommend, and a topic every Christian should be interested in reading and praying about and asking for discernment from the Lord about it. And it'll blow your mind. It will confuse you maybe, because we haven't heard things in the church. Some of the things that David Sorensen reveals through scripture, he doesn't, he's not giving just his little opinion. He's reading the scripture and taking Jesus's words literally. And you can get on his email list at the website as well, thereturnochrist.com. So he says, "It is with great excitement that I'm releasing the very first message from our brand new worldwide platform to bring Christ back to humanity, the return to Christ. I want to encourage you to give this new stream of truth, love, hope, and encouragement a chance. Don't leave right away. Allow these words of truth to flow into your heart and see what they do. The goal is not to promote a belief system or religion, but to reveal that the creator of all life, the source of all love, and the giver of everything good, God, is in fact the opposite of our man-made religions. Did you know that putting Christ in the dark box of religion has been Satan's #1 strategy for preventing humanity from discovering how amazingly wonderful God he is? In my groundbreaking book, What Nobody Told You About the Return of Christ, I share shocking revelations about how Christ never wanted to establish a religion. He came to release the greatest supernatural force from heaven to drive out hell from all humanity. Make sure to check out this mind-blowing book. Did you know that it was the religious leaders who killed the apostles and killed Jesus? And did you know that throughout history, religious leaders have persecuted, tortured, expelled, and murdered the true messengers of Jesus Christ? There's still persecution today. You guys know that. I know that. And why is this? Because religion is God's #1 enemy. When you have always seen God labeled as religion, this may sound strange and wrong, but it is true. Jesus Christ, is not a religion. He is the giver of all life. This means that everything we love is his gift to us. The sun, the sea, the forest, the animals, food, friendship, romance, sports, laughter, relaxation, creativity, great movies, amazing music, and so much more. As a child, David said, I was taken to heaven by an angel. I'm writing about this experience in an upcoming book titled The Angel That Took Me to Heaven. This angel was so magnificent that I have no words to describe him. Did he look solemn like a religious priest? Was he draped in heavy robes like a depressed monk? Was his face stern like a pastor's? No. He was the most magnificent, radiant, blazing figure I had ever seen. He radiated glory, was stronger than Schwarzenegger and Stallone combined times 10,000, and was dressed so beautifully that he would have made the finest couturiers in Paris drool. What struck me most of all, though, were his eyes. He looked at me with eyes that I can describe only as liquid fire, filled with pure love and friendship. I know it sounds strange, liquid fire filled with love and friendship. What is that supposed to look like? His eyes were flames of fire, but they flowed like crystal clear water. Within them, I could see an eternity of endless love. I know it doesn't make any sense, but for me, it was amazing. I explain more in my upcoming book. From a young age, I knew that God is not boring, dull, silly, or religious. He is the greatest power there is, the most beautiful dimension we can encounter. He is the wellspring of everything that makes us truly happy. He inspires love that conquers the worst evil. He gives us the greatest ideas for solving human problems. He speaks words of wisdom that save millions. He guides us through the worst trials, and he lifts us up when everyone else lets us down. I could sing about him forever, write 1,000,000 poems, dance until I faint, and compose musical masterpieces too grand for any orchestra, and I would still fail to express his eternal magnificence. After years of running away from this majestic giver of all life, I came back to him like a little boy. I saw the indescribable splendor of heaven, and it was so vast that it had no end. All I saw was eternal, incomprehensible beauty. And out of it came 2 enormous hands that lifted me like a baby. After running away from God for years and seeking comfort in drugs and pleasure, I was embraced with a love so overwhelming that my friends at the Royal Academy said, "David, you've changed from a devil into an angel." It is these encounters with the inexpressibly beautiful creator of all life that made me love him so much. He saved me from incredible darkness. Without him, I would not be alive today. He rebuilt my broken life from the ground up. He lifted me out of despair and gave me a hope so wonderful that it is difficult to believe. And I know he can do this for you too, and for all of humanity. It frustrates me when I see people claiming to represent Christ while showing you a dead, deceptive, controlling religion that is in fact the opposite of who Jesus is. I hope to reveal him to you as he truly is, although I could never fully achieve that. All I can do is share glimpses, hoping that something inside of you will be inspired to reach out to him for yourself. He is not somebody you merely choose to believe in, as you might believe in Santa Claus. He is waiting to be encountered. He wants us to experience him as the greatest reality in existence. He longs to fill us with his Spirit, the Holy Spirit, so completely that our lives are turned upside down. He is the greatest reality that there is. This is the purpose of this newsletter. I pray this new river of truth will transform your life for the better. Not because I write so eloquently, but because it will touch your heart to surrender to Him who created all that is beautiful in this world and who loves you more than you will ever be able to comprehend. If you appreciate this message, please help me continue this work and support this mission. You don't have to. It will remain free for everyone. But if you value it, please consider helping to make it possible. And he included a link. Let's make this world a better place. David John Sorensen. So go to the website. If you were encouraged by that message, get on his list for the free, encouraging, soul-lifting newsletter that he's sending out. And look for his book. If you haven't read it, if you don't have it, look at the book on Amazon or click on the link at his website and pray about it. It is the best book I've ever read that explains Jesus' words and prophetic words of the Old Testament to a place that I understand them better than I've ever understood them in my life. So that is the encouragement I leave for you as we conclude this podcast and pray to close it out. For those of you that stayed with me until the end, stayed up with me and stayed with me, thank you. And please pray in agreement with me. That website again is thereturnToChrist.com. thereturnToChrist.com. Be sure to check it out. And it will encourage you. And the book will educate you. Not religiously, but what Jesus intended for all of us, that he spoke to his disciples, and what the prophets of old, the Old Testament. There's so much of that I didn't understand that I do now. So much better. So this prayer as always, comes from the Q Military Intelligence Operation. You can find it online at qalerts.app. You can do a search for pound 4739, and this prayer will come up. And we've been praying it every podcast since I was made aware of it. 4 years ago now. Please pray in agreement with me. Strengthen our faith, Lord. Forgive us our sins so that we may be clean in your righteousness. Make us brave so we can stand and fight the spiritual battles in our lives and in our world. And give us your wisdom and discernment, Lord, so we won't be caught off guard. Together, Lord, we win because in truth, you already have. While evil still roams, the power of your name and your blood rises up in victory against every evil planned against us. While malicious actions may disturb us, we use the armor of God that you have equipped us with and given us to stand firm. You will bring justice in due time for all of the harm and needless violence aimed at your children. But until then, we remain in your presence, Lord, aligned with your purposes, and we look to you as our supreme commander and protector. Help us to avoid temptation and deliver us from evil, Lord. You are the mighty one. You are the one who will ultimately bring all evil to light. With you, Jesus, we are safe. Our Father who art in heaven, holy be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth, thank you, Lord, as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our sins as we forgive those who sin against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And thank you for delivering this world from evil. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever and ever. And all the people said, amen. That last part, you are the one who ultimately bring all evil to light. That's what God is doing. This whole podcast brought to light a lot of darkness about people and things that many of you didn't know. And at one time I didn't know either. And maybe tonight was the first time some of you learned some of this. A lot of darkness. But God is bringing an end to all of this. He is the one that is bringing all evil to light. He is the one who made the promise in Luke 8:17 that he gave me. Initially, God gave me everything that's been kept secret, hidden and in the dark. Evil will be revealed and will come to light. And that's exactly what's going on. And we are in his will. This is his will. This is God's will for such a time as this. His promise being fulfilled for such a time as this. And he's called us to be part of his army of God to bring these truths to light. I'm honored to be walking this journey with you guys. And thank you for being here. Thank you for your support to financial, emotional, comments, likes, clicks, follows, subscribing, all of it. It's because you've done all that I'm still here with you over 5 years later. So with that, I'm going to say good night. It's been my honor to be with you again. God bless you. This is Nancy with Seeking Truth Always. I look forward to being with you next time, next week. And until then, I'll say goodbye for now.